Reset is not an option. Emerging, embraced by the deep. Note, this article is a bit extensive, and I'm gifting a chapter of my audiobook at the end. Just scroll down. Enjoy. 5 years ago, the Matrix imposed itself. Do you remember what was happening 5 years ago? Or have you tucked that chapter neatly away, refusing to reread it? I don't forget. I don't forget how the world surrendered to an imposed narrative, how property rights, starting with the fundamental right to one's own body, were obliterated by mandates and collective hysteria. 5 years have passed. Yet, I'm struck by how many continue living under the spell of other people's narratives. Even now, many remain incapable of questioning the very authorities that misled them, that coerced them, that use fear as a weapon against critical thinking. Some of us saw through it then, and we see through it now. We maintained our North Star, the inviolable principle that our bodies are not collateral for someone else's sense of safety. We recognized that surrendering the sovereignty of our physical being was not just a temporary concession, but the first domino in a cascade of lost liberties. Those 5 years revealed who would stand firm when pressure came, who would protect the sacred boundary of their own existence. As Neptune moved through Pisces, its fog descended upon the collective consciousness, blurring the lines between truth and propaganda. Reality itself seemed to bend and distort, with many unable to distinguish between protection and control, between safety and submission. And now, as Neptune prepares to enter Aries, we face a new test. Can those who surrender their autonomy reclaim it? Or they have become so comfortable in their chains that they mistake them for jewelry? Human action, as Ludwig von Mises laid out, is not just an economic principle. It is the very assertion of one's authority. When the state dictates what you must inject in your body, it has already won the war on private property. These past 5 years have been full of deep education. I attended numerous workshops with Gabor Mate, Compassionate Inquiry, Bessel van der Kolk, Peter Levine, Stephen Porges, Polyvagal Theory, Betsy Polatin, and Thomas Hubel, among many others, diving deep into trauma work. I learned how to access my somatic intelligence, applying it practically by working with a practitioner of the Hakomi method, such as Kai Manj, who remains an anchor in my journey. I also train in nonviolent communication, a practice that reshaped my ability to articulate my needs and stand in my truth without resorting to reactionary defensiveness. I also deepened my studies in observation and correlation by facilitating small study groups on human design and evolutionary astrology. Practice makes mastery. At first, I felt ridiculous engaging in circling, an insightful practice I learned from John Vervaeke and Guy Senstock, repeating phrases like, I hear you saying, but I soon discovered its profound value. Circling is a relational practice rooted in a deep, empathic listening, presence, and authenticity, creating psychological safety and mutual understanding. It transformed not only how I connected with my own needs, but also how I engage in relationships, redefining communication as a space for true understanding rather than reaction. Looking back, I sense an incredible shift within myself. And then there was Bitcoin. I didn't just read about it. I immersed myself. I started with a group led by Tansy Bajent, but my hunger for knowledge pushed me further. I began volunteering, connecting with fellow Bitcoiners, and engaging more deeply with the space. I enrolled in Saifedean Amu's program, completing a rigorous study of Austrian economic principles. I also facilitate small study groups on Bitcoin and have begun leading workshops that introduce newcomers to three key axioms of the Austrian school, demonstrating how they align perfectly with Bitcoin. Through learning, practicing, and sharing with others, I realized that the more I engage, the deeper my own metamorphosis. This journey has profoundly transformed my understanding of value, accountability, and long term thinking, reshaping my entire perception of what it means to operate outside of the coercive state system. Ding dong. Running away so I could tell the story. If I hadn't seen what was coming, I wouldn't have been able to make the move I did in 2020. New York was collapsing into dystopian control, and I knew I had to leave. That wasn't escapism, it was a strategic relocation. That decision has allowed me to be here now, to tell the story, to share what I have learned in these 5 years of relentless questioning and transformation. In leaving, I found clarity. The physical distance provided perspective that would have been impossible had I remained immersed in the collective psychosis. Sometimes you need to step outside of the fog to see just how thick it really is. Quote: Praxeology helps us understand economic phenomena through clear reasoning rather than complex mathematics. Its ideas are time tested, ensuring that each step in the deduction process is meaningful and accurate. This perspective provides us insight into market dynamics and resource allocation, where each choice reflects the exercise of personal freedom. By making decisions over time, individuals assert their autonomy and control over their lives. In this framework, property rights also emerge as a vital expression of liberty. They protect the individual's ability to act, ensuring that one's labor, resources, and creations are safeguarded from unwarranted interference. For instance, if a person owns land, they have the right to cultivate it, sell it, or build upon it, free from excessive government control. However, when governments intervene through excessive regulation, taxation, and control, they disrupt this delicate balance, stifling economic freedom and undermining personal sovereignty. This became particularly evident to me in 2020 and 2021 when the government mandates began to interfere with what I consider the most fundamental property of all, my body. These mandates, often justified as collective actions for the greater good, highlighted a troubling reality. We have unknowingly surrendered our liberties because we had lost the ability to discern between collective and individual rights and responsibilities. This expansion of state power during this period was a stark reminder of how easily freedom can be compromised under the guise of public safety. Human action is not just an economic theory, but a defense of political freedom, a safeguard against the overreach of government. Monica Bravo, The Nature of My Reality, Human Action, Freedom and Responsibility, page 90. End of quote. As we navigate this transformative period, it is crucial to reflect on the lessons of the past 5 years. The challenges we faced have stripped away many illusions, revealing truths about our society and ourselves. The upcoming equinox and Neptune's ingress into Aries invite us to harness the energies of renewal and courage to act upon these truths and to initiate a new chapter both individually and collectively. Ding dong! 0 degrees of Aries, the reset button. March 20, the equinox, marks the moment the sun enters 0 degrees of Aries, the cosmic reset button. This year's equinox is particularly significant as Neptune prepares to transition into Aries on March 30th, a shift that hasn't occurred in 165 years. In harmonics, the 0 degree marks the axis of the cardinal signs that divide the circle into 4 quadrants, each initiating a fundamental aspect of ourselves. In Aries, individuality. In Cancer, emotional body. In Libra, relationship to others. And Capricorn, direction of our path. These points aren't rigid boundaries, but vibrational thresholds, places where energy shifts from one state to another. Nothing is static. We are all wavelengths in constant motion. These cardinal points serve as a measurement tools for understanding resonance versus dissonance in our personal and collective journeys. 0 degrees Aries is the moment of initiation. The past dissolves and a new cycle begins. But to move forward, one must first understand what came before. What have we learned? What illusions have we shattered? What truths have emerged? And most importantly, are we willing to act upon them? In the Northern Hemisphere, it aligns with spring. a time of renewal and awakening. And in the southern hemisphere, it signals the descent into autumn. But I didn't grow up with this concept. In the tropics, time wasn't segmented into equinoxes and solstices, dictating the rhythm of life. We had two seasons, rainy and dry. We were in an eternal equinox, which means equal night and day. It wasn't about rebirth in March or decay in September or vice versa. It was a fluid cycle dictated by something more primal. Yes, after living more than half of my life in the northern hemisphere, I adapted to these seasonal shifts. Initially, I resisted, but I learned to move with them. Then I moved to Miami Beach in 2020, and suddenly I was back into the rhythm of rainy season and non rainy season. And yet, the artificial imposition of daylight saving still lingers, a ridiculous vestige of a society obsessed with controlling time rather than understanding it. The last time Neptune entered Pisces, 2011, the year of the Fukushima disaster. What happens when Neptune transitions into Aries? We don't know yet. But history suggests that whenever an outer planet enters a new sign, collective waves ripple through the unseen layers of reality. Last time it entered Aries, the Civil War. Neptune, the planet governing the unconscious and spiritual undercurrents, moving into Aries, a sign of the fiery spark and action, signals a profound metamorphosis in our collective consciousness. Neptune in Aries brings a dynamic yet elusive energy, combining Neptune's themes of dreams, illusions, and transcendence with Aries' pioneering, assertive, and individualistic nature. How this manifests depends on the house placement, which determines where this energy plays out in life. Ding dong. Limitations and expansion, the paradox of freedom. It is ironic. I always tell my commissioners that I work well with limitations. And this proves it. During the most restricting time I have ever lived, when my movement, my body, and my choices were regulated, this is when I expanded my perspective the most. I learned new technologies, new languages, and new ways of expressing myself. But beyond that, I created public art that carries this message embedded within its very DNA. Art is where these ideas live beyond words. They move through space, unconstrained by censorship, telling the story of resistance and the triumph of personal self governance. Ding dong. I'm including two images of a work that I created during 2020 and I installed in 2022. And it's called Unus Mundus. The spirit of the piece is the potential for dialogue. And this was a public art commission commissioned by the city of Boston for the police department. I created hanging sculptures that they have different words. They're very abstract, but you will be able to see them once I tell them to you. So one word was vocation, the other one was embodying, perspective, serve, community, and courage. This is what I wrote because I had a lot of other artists criticizing why what was I doing a piece for a police station. So this is what I wrote. In response to the acceptance of this commission and the increasing polarization around the pandemic and police issues in the early 2020, I intentionally chose to study and understand practices of inner reflection, trauma, and dialogue for the purpose of creating space for conversation and healing. I attended countless workshops, and due to the online nature of engaging during the last couple of years, I had an ample opportunity to actually put into practice what I was learning about, implementing lessons within myself and applying through my work the modalities with which I've become educated. Discovering, acknowledging, and integrating my shadow has become so valuable to me that it has transformed my very being, my purpose, and the way I can be of service. Ding dong. Quote, a woman rises out of the water. A seal rises and embraces her. The Sabian symbol for 1 degree Aries. Dane Rudyard. End of quote. This image encapsulates the essence of emergence and new beginnings. The woman symbolizes the birth of an individual consciousness emerging from the collective unconscious, represented by the ocean. The seal's embrace signifies the harmonious integration of our own instinctual nature with our evolving selfhood. This symbol serves as an important reminder of our potential to rise from the depths of uncertainty and embrace a new reality, merging our primal instincts with conscious intent. Ding dong! The responsibility of the individual. We are entering a period where the individual must take full responsibility for their actions. The notion of we dissolves when it is not grounded in principle. There is no collective without strong, responsible individuals. Neptune in Aries will test this. It will either wash away those who refuse to stand for something, or it will embolden those who take action from a place of clarity and self ownership. Ding dong! A crucial week of realignment. From March 20th to March 30th, we're entering a rare and pivotal window where Venus and Mercury, both retrograde, will conjoin the Sun and then immediately re enter Pisces. By the way, there is a solar eclipse as well, but I will write about it next week. As they do, they will merge with Neptune, dissolve into the unconscious, and then conjunct the North Node before moving forward again. It's almost as if every idea we have about what we truly value, individually and collectively, must undergo dissolution. Everything that surfaced during the recent lunar eclipse, every shadow that revealed itself, must now be readdressed, not with judgment, but with a different lens, one that seeks patterns of forgiveness rather than condemnation. Personally, I have been giving myself the space to feel the awkwardness and the anger of my vulnerability, how it was seen in the past, how it shaped my choices. But now I'm in a different place. This is about witnessing the past, becoming fully aware of it, embracing it, forgiving it, and allowing myself to stand in a completely different reality before Venus and Mercury station direct in the coming weeks. There is a profound sense of closure in this. Having these two personal planets so deeply intertwined with our own inner world meet Neptune and the North Node and Saturn is like living the culmination of the last 5 years. This period isn't just about reflection, it is a turning point. Ding dong! The larger cycle of change and the weight of transformation. Jupiter and Saturn met at 0 degrees Aquarius on December 20th, 2020, a moment that restructured collective patterns. By then, the world had already adapted to restrictions, and many had internalized the idea of limited movement. That alignment has since evolved into a slow moving first quarter square, which has intensified in recent months. This cycle will culminate as Saturn reaches 0 degrees of Aries on May  24th, 2025, while Jupiter approaches 0 degrees of Cancer in June, a direct activation of the North Nodal axis in Cancer at the same degree on May 4th, 2020. This activation is particularly significant as it recalls a period when many foundational decisions were made about our understanding of home and safety, shaping the trajectory of global events. Pluto's ingress into Aquarius, occurring 3 times before its final stay, further highlights the weight of collective transformation. This energy has been repeatedly punctuated by Mars and Venus meeting in the same degree. And now, with Saturn having moved from Capricorn into Aquarius, then into Pisces, and soon into Aries, we're completing nearly 5 years of structural upheaval. The question emerges: as structures dissolve and resurrect, how do ideas expand and embrace emotional needs? What aspects of our lives were defined and transformed in this time? Pluto in Aquarius signals a deep collective metamorphosis, but the individual experience of that change is just crucial. Ding dong! A farewell and a beginning. Grief has been a constant companion lately. My second Saturn return brought 3 exact passes last year. And as Saturn moved into my Chiron, it did the same. Now Saturn has moved past Chiron and squares my Venus. And I feel it, this deep farewell. When the nodes shifted into Gemini in May 2020, it marked a period of questioning the very meaning of life. Lockdown, people were forced into self inquiry. Then, 18 months later, when the nodes moved into Taurus, the collective question became, what do we truly value? Another passage through Libra and Aries until past January 2025 gave us the glimpse on focusing on creating space for our own individuality. All collective garbage must be revoked. Now, As the nodes transit in Pisces, it is about dissolving the old ways of being, shedding outdated constructs, and preparing for the dawn of a new era. The next nodal shift in 16 months into Aquarius and Leo will challenge us to embody individuality in ways we haven't yet defined. Through this, I have felt immense sorrow, and I'm saying goodbye to 30 years of my life since moving to the USA. I am saying goodbye to the person who arrived in New York, built a life of creativity, merged with others, and then realized that she had betrayed herself. This person who woke up knowing the road ahead will be long and difficult. The person who, 10 years ago, chose to walk the road anyway. The journey has been everything: falling, rising again, climbing, resting, regaining strength, acquiring tools, summoning courage, and finally leaving. Leaving behind the familiar, stepping into a space where my sovereignty mattered more than external validation. Now, after 5 years, I know I'm ready. Ready for the new everything. We are at the dawn of something immense. I don't know what it is yet, but I can feel it. The sorrow, the sadness, but also the energy that whispers, why not? Ding dong. The realignment of time and nature. Taoist cosmology teaches that time is not just a measurement, but a realignment with the natural order. When humans live in accordance to the rhythm of the seasons, their chi, vital energy, flows harmoniously, bringing balance to health, prosperity, and well being. However, when one is misaligned with time, disruptions emerge in the form of illness, financial instability, and emotional disarray. Time is perceptual, shaped by our internal cycles, the foods we consume, and the movement of our bodies. Just as the seasons shift, our own internal rhythms must be acknowledged and honored. In failing to align with the deeper structure of time, we create friction between ourselves and reality. This equinox is not just about the celestial mechanics of the sun entering Aries. It is an invitation to recalibrate, to attune ourselves to the organic flow of life, and to step into true sovereignty, both physically and spiritually. Ding dong. Okay, so I arrived to the end of the article, and I'm also giving you some previous articles where I delve deeply into the changes we're all experiencing. Archetypes are markers. So, as a freebie, an audio excerpt from my audiobook chapter on human action here below. And last but not least, I'm leaving a couple of offering chants from Lama Gurme and Jean-Philippe Riquel. I love this too. Last but not least, I'm going to read a footnote about Neptune. Neptune's transit through Aries, 1861-1875, coincided with major global upheavals, particularly the American Civil War, which was between 1861 and 1865, and broader movements towards war, nationalism, and ideological transformation. Aries, ruled by Mars, signifies conflict, assertion, and new beginnings, while Neptune dissolves boundaries, cultivating both idealism and confusion. This combination fueled military conflicts, ideological fervor, and the reshaping of national identities. Hello. Key events during this period include the unification of Italy in 1861, the Meiji Restoration, 1868, and the Franco-Prussian War, 1870 until 1871, all of which reflected Neptune's role in dissolving all structures to create new ones. Additionally, the emancipation of Russian Serbs, 1861, and the rise of socialist activism, the First International, 1864, embodied Neptune's visionary yet disruptive influence. As Neptune prepares to re enter Aries in 2025, we may witness parallels, ideological divisions, technological revolutions, and the redefinition of sovereignty, particularly through the decentralization in Bitcoin. Have a great week.